But there's so much wrong with the preamble, it's hard to... We could actually spend our whole time on this question of what's wrong with the preamble. Okay, so you've read it many times. I don't like... There are two things that I personally think is misleading. I don't mean flawed in the aspirations, but I mean misleading in the tense of the verbs that it's using. It's misleading that these things are accomplished by what? Look at the verbs. We establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity do ordain and establish this Constitution. What is misleading about these words? There are at least two different responses.
I think it sounds like it's guaranteed.
Yes, Tiara, it's guaranteed. Is it? Would you say that any one of these things is true at that time by the writing of the document or its ratification? One thing that could be true, so what is it? Is it these words are so hard to prove. Establish, ensure, provide, promote, secure. Would anyone like to argue against us that one of those things happened by the writing of the document? So what does it mean then to say these things? And also look at not just the established word, but justice. Could you see there's injustice at the founding? There is definitely not domestic tranquility. The common defense is not secure. You'll certainly talk about that with westward expansion. And it's not just that the British are still there, the Spanish, the French, the Russians, with their eye on California, Mexico. I mean, it's not just the Civil War, but there is an extraordinary amount of violence in the United States. Washington, D.C. is burned to the ground in 1812, during the 1812 War. The general welfare, what is that? Now, that's going to be our theme today. But this is obviously the most mysterious. And you cannot say that there are the blessings of liberty. The people who are writing and ratifying this are a tiny percentage of elites. Most of us in this room would be excluded. But even within the white male 21-year-old group, there's a major exclusion here too. What is the major exclusion for white men at the time? Property. Right. So that's not done by the Constitution, that's done by state law, and that doesn't start to fall away until the 1830s, in the Jacksonian period. So what do we do with this? Why do we love the preamble? Why are our third graders learning it? Even though we've just taken it down completely, there has to be something worth saving. So what is it?
It was our goal. That's
goal.
What we wanted.
Good. Aspirations. Aspirations. So Jay's right. So we aspire to these things. So the connection between all the conflict that we just discussed, which is a natural order of political life, and yet we still invoke this. Are we cynical as a people, or are we optimistic as a people?
Yes.
Americans think that they're very cynical and not very trusting. And a lot of polling actually shows that. If you ask an American, do you trust the government to make the right decision most of the time?
Yes.
Sometimes those numbers go down. But if you ask an American, do you put your money in the bank because you think the bank will exist tomorrow? Do you vote in an election because you think your vote will be counted? Until the 2000 election in Florida, if you live in certain counties, I don't think any American has actually ever walked away from a polling booth, ever, and worried about that vote.
Or knew about the hanging chair.
Or knew, right, that so many votes are actually thrown away all the time because they are destroyed or they're poorly executed by the voter. So I want you to keep this in mind as a theme today, that we do have real conflict in this country, and yet we have these unifying aspirations. And how do we reconcile these two things? So the point here for our purposes of general welfare is simply, is general welfare defined here? No, and neither is the rest of it. So let's not pick on general welfare.